right, good morning and welcome everyone to today's webinar, The Power of the Word, Selected AAPI Readings from the CUNY Forum. I'm your moderator, Dr. Eric Radeski. I'm Director of Government Affairs at Hostos Community College. And before we get started with the discussion of the work, I would like to invite our college president, Dr. Daisy Cocco de Filippis, to say a few words.
Good morning. Bienvenidos. Buenos días. Welcome to Hostos. This morning, we gratefully honor our brothers and sisters in the Asian American Pacific Islander community as we all celebrate AAPI month. A very warm welcome to our colleagues, Dr. Anthony Wang, Russell Long, and forgive me for the way I may not pronounce this correctly. I have a Spanish accent to this, all right? Shraya Sundaram. Thank you to our own Dr. Radeski for moderating the panel and to all of you in attendance and the Office of the President for their support. There's a power in the CUNY Forum Summer Fall 24 issue. They're everyday heroes, art, education, and culture. I was so moved by the poems, memoirs, historical recordings, art, and commentary because of their affirmation that we all need to tell our stories to live. Silence in the face of oppression, violence, and discrimination is not an option for any community. So I celebrate the beauty and courage of these writings. As a four-time CUNY alumna, 2 times from Queens College, so you know that Flushing was my place. 42 years resident of Flushing, Queens. I have seen the sense of community grow to embrace different immigrant communities. Queens has become one of the most diverse places on earth at this point. I know we will be engaged every minute of this panel. I know I will. I cannot wait to hear you all read and enjoy again what was to me a delightful afternoon reading. Thank you so much. Enjoy. And in my own language, mil gracias y bendiciones. Many blessings and many thanks.
Thank you, President, for those greetings. Okay, let me introduce our panelists, all of whom contributed to and helped put together this work. We have Anthony Wang, Program Coordinator of the Asian American and Asian Research Institute of the City University of New York and Assistant Publisher of CUNY Forum. He received his BA from Hunter College and MBA from the Zicklin School of Business at Baruch College. Russell C. Leong is the founding editor of the CUNY Forum and served as the Dr. Thomas Tam Visiting Professor at Hunter College. He is the former editor of Amerasia Journal from 1977 to 2010 at UCLA, where he also taught English and Asian American Studies. Leong, educated in Taiwan and the U.S., is the author of Phoenix Eyes and Other Stories from the University of Washington Press, which received the American Book Award. Leong received his MFA in Film and Theater from UCLA. And finally, Shreya Sundaram is the Project Director, Adult Ally for the Localized History Project, a youth participatory action research project that works to uplift localized Asian American, Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander history in New York State. Shreya is a PhD candidate in urban education at the CUNY Graduate Center and holds a BA from Columbia University and an MA from New York University. The Localized History Project's latest publication is a special issue of educational studies that focuses on youth solutions to the invisibility of AANHPI history in curriculum. You can follow their work at Localized History on Instagram. Okay, so we are going to move right along to Dr. Leong. You are the editor for this volume, right? The CUNY Forum?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the work?
Oh, okay. Everyday Heroes is basically a kind of a post-COVID volume, and it basically looks at art, education, and culture with the focus on the East Coast and especially New York City. And inside, we actually have accounts of the first kind of Asian American arts organization, Basement Workshop, founded in the 1970s. We also have research on multicultural Asian education in the New York state region. We also have memoirs about motherhood and about community. And the last story actually was written by, I think, a Guyanese person, Regina Bernard, and it's about the difficulty of people of color in kind of regular kind of academia, getting jobs and so forth. And the whole volume was inspired by a drawing by Lisa Chin. It's called Everyday Heroes, and you probably will see it later. And she actually explores the intersection of gender and architecture, race, and so forth in New York from a woman's perspective. So I think it's a kind of an appropriate issue, especially in face of the sort of anti-diversity and anti-inclusion status of America right now. One of the things I wanted to say about CUNY Forum, in a sense, it was inspired by when I first came to New York as the Thomas Tam visiting scholar. I noticed that we did not have any kind of academic or research publication within Asian American studies among the whole CUNY system. And I was somewhat inspired by the fact that Puerto Rican studies has been around for a long time. They have their own publications, like I think it's called Central and so forth. And I thought that, well, maybe it's about time to have something on, Asian American studies in Asia, thus the birth of CUNY Forum. And actually, I'm trying to basically carry on the work of Dr. Betty Lee Sung and Dr. Thomas Tam, the co-founders of the Asian American Asian Research Institute. So that's it. That's kind of the summary.
Great. Thank you, Russell. Next up, we are going to have a recording of one of the poems from this volume, A Buddhist Prayer for Peace. This was specifically requested by our president because she enjoyed it so much. Victor, can you cue up the recording?
In a world still trembling with chaos and change, I lift my deepest thanks to Hostos Community College and to President Daisy Cocco de Filippis, whose gracious spirit and steadfast support of CUNY Forum have offered light upon path of words. Their belief in this humble poet is a balm in restless time, and reminder that even now, their hearts that listen and voices that care. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. In the midst of suffering and despair, we turn to the teachings of the Buddha, seeking solace and guidance in our quest for liberation. As we witness the anguish of those in pain, we recall the words of the Buddha in Buddhist scripture, Dhammapada. He abused me, he ill-treated me, he got the better of me, he stole my belongings. Understanding that harboring such thoughts only deepens the cycle of enmity. May we, with hearts full of compassion, embrace the wisdom that even amidst adversity, the enmity of those not harboring such thoughts can be appeased. For forgiveness is the path to true freedom. Let us remember the eternal truth that hatred is never quenched by hatred, but only by a gentle touch of loving kindness, a timeless law woven into the fabric of existence. With palm joined and minds serene, we offer our prayers for the swift resolution of conflict and all affected, be they young and old, female or male, and all sentient beings. May they find refuge in the boundless compassion of Triple Gem, and may peace reign supreme in every corner of the world. May the light of the Buddha illuminate their path. May the Dhamma be their guiding principle, and may the Sangha provide them with unwavering support. Through the power of loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, may all beings find liberation from suffering, and may the chains of bondage be broken. Forever and ever. Swaha.
Thank you for playing that and for facilitating the recording. I want to see if I can get the monk's name right. Sagaranada Tien. Is that close? Would any of our panelists like to say a little bit about that poem before we move on to the next piece?
Well, just to give a little brief bio of Venerable Tien, he's a resident monk and secretary of the U.S. Zen Institute located in Germantown, Maryland, a Buddhist organization promoting Buddhist teachings and meditation, and considers himself a student of religion, literature, philosophy, art, and science. And perhaps Russell has a few words about the poem itself.
Well, not about well, actually, the poem is basically ecumenical in that it's basically trying to cross lines of enmity. And what I wanted to say is that their new, actually, USN Institute, they're located in Germantown, Maryland, which is pretty multicultural, and it's not just Asian. And they actually welcome cooperative and collaborative ventures because they have a very large space, for instance, for cultural and art events. And not necessarily, they don't all have to be Buddhist, but kind of comparative cultures. So, it's possible in the future that maybe, I'm sure they actually have worked with other religious groups and so forth, Jewish, Catholic, Muslim, and so forth. So hopefully in the future, maybe we can actually all work together.
I certainly hope so. Let's move to the next piece that'll be presented by Anthony.
But yeah, just a little introduction about the institute itself. The Asian American Asian Research Institute is a citywide organization within CUNY that works across all colleges, and its mission is to facilitate, foster, educate, and conduct original research and programming on issues on Asian America and Asia. CUNY Forum is just one of the many platforms AARI provides, including our lecture series, conferences, and educational materials, which you can find on our website. So in this issue of CUNY Forum, it's broken down into 4 different sections. This is the table of contents and Russell's intro. So our first section is called Basement Workshop. We have couple of essays from originators of the original Basement Workshop. The first one is from Eleanor Young. It's titled Basement Workshop, and it's followed by Danny Young from New York to Hong Kong, from Basement Workshop to Zuni Ichirazendran. So Eleanor Young's first essay explores the origins and impacts of Basement Workshop, which was founded in 1970. It's one of the first, it is the first Asian American political and arts organization. in New York City, and Basement Workshop became a hub for young adults who later on became influential figures in various fields. The workshop fostered a creative environment where diverse ideas and projects flourished, leading to the establishment of various organizations that live on today, including the Museum of Chinese in America. Young's narrative emphasizes Basement's Workshop's pivotal role in Asian American movement and its lasting legacy through various institutions and leaders it helped to cultivate. And then in her second essay, she discusses the important work of her brother, Danny Young, highlighting his contributions to the arts and his role in Basement Workshop and his interdisciplinary approach and influence on the cultural landscape, both in New York and Hong Kong. So over here, what you see is actually a group photo of the originators of Basement Workshop. Here's a Chinatown study that led to the creation of Basement Workshop. This study showed that there was a lack of participation from the government taking care of Chinatown in terms of economic and health needs. Here's Danny Young, present-day Danny Young, with one of his art projects. And then the following essay is by Robert Lee. He is the founder and executive director of the Asian American Arts Center. So his two essays are about the center itself and then a review of different 10 artists. Following essay is by Rocky Chin. He discusses his work in the Basement Workshop, revisiting the Asian American Resource Center within Basement Workshop and its evolution into the New York Chinatown History Project, which in turn later on led to other projects such as the Museum of Chinese in America. We have an essay by Jeannie Chin, From Basement to Park Row. In this particular essay, Jeannie connects her experiences at Basement Workshop to her ongoing activism, present time, for Park Row in Chinatown. She discusses her involvement in the Children's Arts Project at Basement and draws a parallel between the community engagement of Basement and her current efforts to advocate for the reopening of Park Row, which has actually been closed since 9/11. Jeannie narrative highlights the long-term commitment of Basement Workshop members to community development and advocacy, demonstrating the lasting impact of the organization's early work. And next we have, and this is an article of when Park Row was originally closed. Residents there were pushing for it to be reopened. 20 plus years later, it's still not reopened, and they've actually hosted town halls, summer till now, trying to advocate to the mayor and city council members to reopen it in order to revitalize the economic business vitality of Chinatown. And finally, we have Yiling Poon. She discusses her work in the Chinatown, New York Chinese Historical Society, and the work there that also led to the Museum of Chinese in America, and also the work of members who were part of Basement Workshop that sprung off and became members of an organization called Asian Americans for Equality, which fights for housing advocacy in Chinatown and abroad. So we have this essay by Mary Uematsu Kao about the famed photographer Corky Lee, who's famous in the Asian American community. Unfortunately, Corky, a CUNY alumni out of Queens College, passed away in 2021 due to COVID, and he wasn't able to actually publish a collection of his photos that Russell actually had a hand in earlier on while he was still around, trying to get it published. And after he passed away, some of his friends, as well as Columbia University professor May Nai, got together and actually published his photos together with his family. And it came out in 2024, and they're still doing the book tour, and the many different photographs are available in it. Some of the famous ones that we feature in CUNY Forum over here is a the top photo you see here is actually a protest for to get justice for Vincent Chin. If you don't know who he is, back in the 80s, Detroit, Michigan, the automotive industry was on the downturn. Japan was being blamed for it. A lot of auto workers lost their jobs. Vincent Chin was out on a bachelor party. Two auto workers, white auto workers, saw him at the bachelor party, got angry with him, and later on that evening beat him with a bat. And later on, those two gentlemen didn't serve a day in jail. And protests across the country among different Asian American organizations got together and were able to take the individuals to civil court. And there was a judgment. However, those two gentlemen have never paid the estate any money at all. Bottom one is a fight for the Ethnic Studies Department over the Ethnic Studies Center over at Columbia University. The top one you see here, the gentleman shrouded in the American flag, is soon after 9/11. There was a vigil held in Central Park, taken by Corky, to show solidarity for America. And after the attacks. Bottom one is a more modern photo over here of Black Lives Matter on the campus of the University of Illinois that Corky took. The top left corner you see here are two photos, two women who are part of a protest that happened in the 1980s. Chinatown was a big garment manufacturing hub. They were in the beginning of trying to get unionized and more rights and more pay, fair pay. And one morning they decided to go out and protest. And later on, the factory owners decided to cave into demands. Yeah. And then we have our second section. It's called What's in a Name? We have an essay from a professor from LaGuardia Community College, Jayashi Kamble. She does a comparison between the two recent films called Godzilla -1 and Past Lives, and sort of weaves into both films that there's actually a romantic thread between the both of them. Vina Orden, a Filipino writer, talks about Marvel and how they just recently in the past came out with a Filipina Captain America, which is pretty interesting. You see her right here, and sort of the problematics of having a Filipina and other races of Captain Americas that Marvel was trying to diversify at that time. And Russell, next one for you. Fear is a Bowl of Noodles by Lisa Chin.
Okay. One of the things, which Anthony has gone through actually basically shows that, we need to be the heroes of our own stories. And when I was growing up in the 1950s and 60s, there was no, when we read textbooks, there was nothing by Asian Americans, and also no images. So, things have changed quite a bit thanks to ethnic studies, which actually commemorates its kind of 50th year, actually, which is kind of amazing, half a century. Let me talk a little bit about Fear is a Bowl of Noodles. And it's actually a collection of architectural drawings by Lisa Chin, who has actually worked throughout the United States as an architect, but who is now a architectural project manager at Brooklyn College right here in New York. And basically, I want to read this particular introduction to her work because it's pretty relevant. What does fear have to do with noodles like ramen or something like that? So let me just read this short passage by Lisa Chin. She says, the antipathy and violence towards Asians triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic motivated me to create illustrations that contemplated discrimination in America. My exploration of Asian identity also led to sketches portraying themes common to the immigrant experience, such as struggle, survival, and unwavering hope. In March 2021, 8 people were murdered at massage parlors in Atlantic, Georgia, by a gunman targeting Asian women who he blamed for his sex addiction. Between March 2020 and December 2021, Stop AAPI Hate reported there were nearly 11,000 hate crimes committed against Asians in the U.S. As an Asian American woman, I'm exhausted by the need to remain constantly vigilant against those who might do me harm, and enraged by the messaging from figures of authority demonizing Asians and reducing them to an alien other, deserving of abuse. Shown above is, in this image here, is Fears Above Noodles, a portrait of an Asian woman in the face of hatred. She fades into the background like a submissive wallflower, yet she's a temptress, an exotic flower of forbidden fetishes. She is vilified for being an outsider and ogled for devouring barbaric food. She is an imagined creature seen through the lens of racism and misogyny. But behind those caricatures is a real woman whose rage is as real as the meal in front of her. Her anger grows out of her head like tendrils fed by the cruelty and inhumanity of a world go mad. Can we go to the next image? Angels and insects. Lisa here talks about during the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, taking herself on architectural kind of walks through her neighborhood. And one thing she tried to do in this is actually combine the glass windows and facades of many churches with biblical stories of plagues and pestilence brought by insects. For instance, so basically, she's actually combining the sort of secular and the sacred, the religious, and also, things like pandemics and pestilence. Remember, this is during COVID, and probably, people were not supposed to socialize. So basically, she went around the city and made these drawings, and it's a very interesting way of combining stained glass and insects in this particular image, angels and insects, very unique. Let's go to Everyday Hero, which is the cover of CUNY Forum. Can we put that back on, the Everyday Hero image? And that is basically a bird. I think it's an homage to an everyday hero who, despite limitations, possesses, as she says, rare courage and conviction to face danger in the pursuit of lofty ideals. And it's quite interesting. We see this animal on a bicycle, and also we see a bird. And I think behind there is, I'm not sure, is it the Chrysler Building or Empire State Building with the spire? But anyway, it's New York City. And so actually, what Lisa has done in her drawings is basically utilize ideas around her vocation, architecture, her thoughts around race, gender, and oppression. And also, she's tried to find metaphors in everyday things, everyday buildings, everyday creatures like birds, insects, and so forth, in order to create metaphors about being an Asian American woman. And so, this actually kind of inspired the theme for this particular issue. And as everyone knows, basically, ethnic studies, actually, one of the manifestations of ethnic studies, whether it's for Asians, Blacks, Latinos, Native Americans, is that the putting forth of our own art and culture. And many times we use cultural means in order to define who we were, because before that, we really did not see ourselves on television, in books, in history, and so forth. And so this has been a very long erasure of our histories in the Americas, at least 200 years. And in the space of 50 years, places like UCLA, Hostos Community College, Hunter, many, many places actually have helped to reclaim who we are as people and as communities. And Lisa is one of them in these very special drawings. Yeah, that one, the exit strategy is sort of interesting. And she says that was inspired by the Greek myth of Icarus and Daedalus, the architect who fashioned wings to escape his imprisonment in the labyrinth with the Minotaur. And this is, of course, during COVID. And I think everybody was looking for an exit strategy, feeling very confined and so forth. So it's really says a lot about the power of artists to convey not only emotions, but to convey perspectives, both political and personal, through their art. So thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, and to finish off section number 2, there's 2 essays from Guo Jin and Mai Mang, who real name is Yibing Huang, called The Undeniable Existence, and Guo Jin, What is My Name? So, Guo Jin's essay, accompanied by Mai Mang's analysis, delves into Guo's 50-year journey as a Chinese and Chinese-American artist. The essays explore Guo's artistic evolution, her exploration of identity, and her unique perspective as a female artist navigating multiple contexts. And we have a sample next in Yibing Huang's essay. Huang's essay provides critical insights into Guo Jin's work, highlighting her contributions to the art world and her role as a pioneering figure. And basically, this is an excerpt from a catalog that they did from the exhibition that they held at Connecticut College. And that is a sample of Guo's work. Yeah. And then we lead to section number 3 called Localizing New York Histories. And the main essay of this is Localized History, Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Stories and Narratives in New York State, K through 12 Social Studies curriculum. And we'll hand it over to our next panelist.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shreya. I'm the adult ally for the Localized History Project. I wanted to thank Russell and Anthony for what they just shared and how they framed the rest of the pieces of the CUNY Forum. And I think the work of the young people in this piece is an extension of many of the same themes that have already been discussed today, right? So like the sense of invisibility that many Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander youth feel, the importance of ethnic studies and being able to anchor ourselves in our own histories and being able to see that history represented within classroom spaces is really critical. And while much of what has been discussed has been in the space of arts or in higher education, this is certainly true in the K through 12 space as well. And so this essay speaks to the Localized History Project, and it was written by myself, Diana Yangi Pan, and Kulsum Tapal, about our advocacy efforts to bring localized Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander history curriculum to New York State. But I'm actually going to be sharing a little bit about our current work and what we have done since the writing of this piece. So I'll just share my screen and hopefully you all can see these slides. So the Localized History Project, which we introduced in the CUNY Forum piece, has evolved quite a bit since its writing. At this stage, it's a New York State funded youth participatory action research project that's investigating to what extent Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander history is taught in New York State, but also to create a localized history archive that is entirely driven by young people, that shows a utopic vision of if our histories were taught in the classroom, what histories would we want to be taught? So I'm actually going to zoom ahead to the community archive piece to just showcase some of the histories that our young people have been working on. And so again, the focus is on this theme of localized history being histories that are unique to the communities of New York and New York City. So as Russell named, for example, because of histories of indenture, New York City is home to large Indo-Caribbean populations and Indo-Latinx and Chinese Latinx populations. And so those are some of the histories that are unique to our city, but are not necessarily represented in the history curriculums of our classrooms. Similarly, New York City has a large refugee population of Cambodian refugees in the South Bronx, but that again is a history that we might not see actually reflected within the school system. And so many Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander youth feel as though they're not getting to learn the particularities of their own lived experiences or of the history that is truthful to the city that we live in. And so the community archive, which we've been building and we are preparing to launch and showcase on June 14th, is a collection of these histories. And it's collected by our youth researchers who are ages 16 to 22 through forums like oral history interviews with elders, through the creation of zines and art projects, and through other non-traditional means of presenting history. And they were very inspired by the work of Basement Workshop that's been featured in CUNY Forum and others who, we hope to follow in their lineages and their legacies and advocating for this kind of ethnic studies to be taught within schools. So just to showcase 3 sample projects, one of the projects that a young person is working on is focused on the South Asian queer rights movement in the 1990s in New York City, in which queer South Asian groups were banned from participating in the India Day Parade in New York City, which still happens to this day. SALGA, the South Asian Lesbian Gay Association, was an organization that was prevented from participating in the parade, and so many other groups showed up in solidarity and created a counter-protest to ensure that they could participate. And actually, Corky Lee photographed many of the counter-protest moments, so just to show how interconnected the various members of this CUNY Forum piece are. So that's one example, localized history, and this student is collecting oral testimonies with some of the activists who participated in advocating for the queer community to be a part of the larger South Asian identity. The second story comes from a student from Chappaqua, New York, who's currently documenting bridges of solidarity between the AANHPI community and the indigenous communities of New York. In Chappaqua, there are many pre-colonial monuments from the indigenous tribes that have called Chappaqua home. And these monuments are actually under attack and are likely to be destroyed due to developers and land bids. And so the project focuses on the current advocacy efforts in which the Asian American community is playing a large leadership role to ensure that these monuments and local history can be preserved. And then finally, we have a student who is documenting the history of the Ghadar Party. The Ghadar Party were an anti-imperialist group in the 1913s that were Punjabi and Sikh, predominantly men, who were advocating for a free India from British control. And what's interesting about the Ghadar Party is, one, that they mark a pre-1965 migration story, which many people do not learn about in schools, of the South Asian community. And also that the Ghadar Party actually was started in New York City. A lot of what has been written about the Ghadar Party focuses on SF, San Francisco. And so Ravi is focusing on documenting one of the earliest instances of political activism within the South Asian community, but also a community that started out here in New York City. And so these are just some instances of localized history that our archive will be showcasing. And so we hope that you'll follow us at Localized History on our Instagram to learn more about this project. And also we are having a launch event on June 14th at CUNY Law. And so if folks are free and would love to hear more of these stories coming directly from young people as opposed to myself, we would love to see you there. Thank you.
All right, and just before we move on, I want to let people know that if they have any questions for any of our panelists, please drop them in the Q&A. We'll get to them after the next 2 pieces that we're going to hear about. I think the next one is Anthony.
Yes. So we're down to our final section, section 4, to begin to become. And I'm going to read, well, first here is a photo of the Venerable Tien that Russell actually took over at the Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles when he was visiting the city. And that's just his piece. That was the video that he read. So I'm going to read a poem from Leslie Chow, who's a public school teacher, public high school teacher on Governor's Island. And she writes about her mother. The next two pieces that Russell and I will read are actually about people reminiscing about their late mothers, and Mother's Day is just passed, so happy belated Mother's Days to all. So this one is called Wu Ling Shan Becomes Lilian Chow. I see my mother in this photograph, captured in November 1957. She is sitting dressed in white wool sweater under an oversized tweed jacket. A plum blossom flower in early spring. She is Wu Ling Shan, first daughter of Yan, Xing Shan, and Wu, Fu Ting of Qingdao. Her silk Chinese dresses lie abandoned in her steamer trunk. Winter's too cold in the Midwest to dress in light apparel. Her hair is short, curled, fashionably coiffed, teeth impeccably white, a smile so fresh, lips tinted red like a doll's face. I do not recognize this young woman. Her Mandarin self is brave, proud, confident, flirtatious. One eye open to the future, the other half closing. Her Chinese life coming to an end, my mother. Along her palm, one line severed by another line forming. I want to save this young woman before it is too late. The photo bends and curls and twists in my hands. The girl in the photo snaps back aggressively like a dog snatching its bone. There is no home. Here is home. China invaded, destroyed, lost, and broken by war. Her heart transplanted from one country to another. In America, she does not know the rules of the game. She is alone among strangers. Her Mandarin words that wrapped around her tongue like butterflies' wings flutter in flight and fade away. Soon she will become Lydian Chow, her merry American name. Her hair will become straight and long like a Native American. Her pearly white teeth will stain from cigarettes and coffee. Her English voice will become short, clipped, and guarded. Her children will lose their mother tongue, hide their heritage, and be scattered throughout the four corners of the United States like a paperless children caught between two worlds. We become the unbelonging.
And just so everyone knows, although it's probably obvious, this is the photo that the author is referencing at the beginning of the poem. Okay, and then the next one will be read by Russell.
Yes, thank you, Anthony. It's a quite moving poem. Mothers are really the ones who take care of who we are, who we belong to in the world, in the family, in the culture. This homage to her mother is actually written by Sharon Hom. Sharon Hom is a professor emeriti of the CUNY Law School, the CUNY School of Law, excuse me. And she's also the former director of the Human Rights in China as well. She was named one of the 50 women to watch by the Wall Street Journal in 2007. This poem to her late mother, and actually that is her photograph of her mother when she first immigrated to America, as you could see on the screen. What I just wanted to say is, in terms of Chinese custom, when somebody dies, usually you burn paper, sort of paper money and other things. And in the poem, there's a reference to a witch, but it's not a witch in the kind of Western sense. It's more like a ghost, the presence of somebody absent who is still here somehow. So let me read this poem called Begin Again by Sharon Hom. For my mother, the absent presence haunting these spare, sparse lines, I can only burn them with the paper ghost money we send to you, scattered ashes, lost in the wind, like tears in the rain. Suddenly, coming upon that witch in the mountains was not a good place to begin after all. Begin again. She stood frozen at the top of the stairs, unable to decide whether to come down or stay. Begin again. Write about it. Your mother's dress, you said, not knowing, though she could never fit into it again, and that I, wearing it, could not breathe or move. Begin again. Coming upon that old woman in the mountains, was she a witch after all? Begin again. She descended down the stairs, only to find herself lost at the bottom. Begin again. My mother's dress, a cheongsam of rich gray silk, embroidered with pale pink flowers, the high collar delicately edged, also in pink. In a faded black and white photo, captured that first night of arrival, her high cheekbones framed by wavy dark hair, her eyes already exhausted by the lifetime to come. My mother is beautiful.
Thank you, Russell and Anthony, for those readings. Okay, let me take a look at the questions we have. I see a few of them coming in. The first one is from Christopher Burrell, a professor at Hostos, and says, this is not a question, but a comment. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. I invite the panelists to submit a piece to one of the distributed special issues of the Ethnic Studies Review Journal, particularly on either the origins of ethnic studies programs or the contemporary state of ethnic studies programs. Searching Ethnic Studies Review can lead you to the journal homepage. So that's something that maybe our panelists would like to take a look at. Okay, a question here from anonymous attendee. What gives you hope about the future of AAPI studies, art, and activism in a time of rising anti-diversity rhetoric?
I can start. I mean, I think for me, just one, naming the fact that this is not the first time in history that these kinds of attacks have taken place, nor is it the first time in history in which the truth-telling of history has been silenced. While that's not maybe a hopeful statement, is at least a acknowledgement that there are, activists and elders before us who have had to navigate similar moments in time. And so I think the work of ethnic studies is preserving movement history as well as our own individual family histories. And I think bridging from these intimate histories to movement histories, learning about folks like Basement Workshop, learning about outside of Asian American studies, the Panthers and the Young Lords, and thinking about the ways in which communities have always fought for history to be taught and included is something that gives me hope. And so in working with young people, I think listening to them and the ways in which they want to preserve this work, and then teaching and learning the history of prior movements who have been also in the struggle to protect our history has always grounded me and given me pathways forward. And so I think even the act of learning this history is a radical act. And so I think continuing to create and participate in spaces like this one is something that gives me hope.
Yeah, I'd like to, thank you. I'd like to, I actually feel hopeful, even though I'm an old guy, for three reasons. One is that I always separate the state from the people, the state from the community. No matter what country you are in the world, whether it's, the US, China, Russia, Korea, wherever, the state and the community are not necessarily synonymous. Number two, I think that one of the things ethnic studies has taught us is that we have to move beyond our own communities and collaborate with others. And I think in this kind of collaboration, there will be a greater strength. Right now, especially in the US, the state kind of mechanism is to basically divide us and pit us against one another. But so I basically think we have to reach out. Number three, I think that ethnic studies and so forth is important not only in the classroom, but even in our own families. And basically, we need to strengthen what happens locally, because I think the local also has a global effect. For instance, a number of years ago, when my mother was 70, I actually did a sort of an oral history of her. And so basically, I think we can do things in our own homes, in our own communities, in our own places of worship, and so forth, which have nothing to do necessarily with either the state or with even academia, and basically, therefore, strengthen our communities. And so that's why I still have hope. As long as we breathe, we can and move, we can still practice.
Anthony, do you want to add anything?
I have hope in our elected officials, at least in New York City. Yeah. We have a few Asian American elected officials as well as their colleagues who are pushing for Asian American history curriculum. So I'm hopeful that that actually gets passed soon for New York State, at least.
And one of those elected officials I think you're referring to is Senator John Liu, who has been a past participant in this event, the AAPI event here at Hostos.
Yeah, on the Senate level, yep.
I just want to add in a general note. I think something that both Russell and Shreya touched on is that the themes that we heard in these various works are things that other ethnic groups or minority groups can relate to. You know, the placing of a label on the group from people who are not part of the group. You know, a sense of alienation or otherness, or trying to claim their space both in the present and historically within the society that we're all a part of. But sometimes people get pushed out for one reason or another, and then we need to correct that history. I also want to give a chance for you guys to plug the book. I mean, I have it here in hard copy, the CUNY Forum Volume 11.1. But where can our viewers find this online or get a copy?
You can purchase a copy by visiting our website, AAARI.info, and under publications, you can click on CUNY Forum and you can locate it. Or, yeah, I believe Hostos Community College is actually raffling off a few copies for attendees. No?
Yeah, I think so. I'll have to see how
Okay.
we do that online with this
Sure.
format. Maybe we can use the
We also will make sure to include copies, because I do raffle at multiple meetings, different books, and so it will be included certainly as the new year begins with the because the meetings now are more into honor societies and what have you as we get close to to commencement. But I'm sorry, as you can see, I'm working from home this morning, and there's a young woman called Rosa who's making them know that she's not happy with visitors. Okay, sorry. So we will continue to share. If I may just add one more thing, I'm so moved, Professor Long, by your connecting Ostos movement because it's true. Ostos came out of the, Martin Luther King and that movement. Many community colleges come out of that struggle for civil rights. But the one thing that we know that our namesake, Eugenio Maria de Hostos, believed in, and he would have been so proud of this document as well. When you teach, when you write, and I think it was Professor Sundaram who mentioned talking about letting the children know education should begin localized in who you are, where you were born, and everything else. And from that understanding, he believed in his book on pedagogy. Then you bring them to the larger world, but basically begin with knowing who you are and where you are, and that history of your people where you are. and what they bring if they're immigrants. It's just unbelievable how much, especially for those of our students born in the Bronx, how important it is for them to know about the Bronx, and it's just a poor South Bronx, but a history of the Bronx as well. So I think this is why I love these events, because there's so much more in common than there are differences among all of us, especially if we are immigrants or children of immigrants from underrepresented groups in the power structure here.
And I see another comment and a question that I want to get to. First, a comment from Philip Oliveri. He says, not so much a question, but simply wanted to thank the presenters for sharing these selected readings from the CUNY Forum. They help our understanding of identity, resilience, and creativity, and challenge stereotypes and expand our empathy. And then we have another question from an anonymous attendee. What are some of the biggest challenges you've encountered in preserving and sharing Asian American histories, and how have you overcome them? And I'll throw that out to whichever panelist wants to chime in first.
Well, I think one of the big obstacles is, partly our own. I mean, it's a good and bad thing. When ethnic studies was formed, especially at SM State, we were divided into Native American studies. At that time, it was called Chicano studies, Asian American studies, and Black studies. And basically, we had classes, teachers, and so forth. But basically, the Asians took the Asian classes, the Blacks took the Black classes, Chicanos took the classes on Chicanos. So basically, we're still a little bit isolated from each other. Yet the purpose actually is to, I believe, to learn more about each other. So I myself actually deliberately took a class at that time in Mexican philosophy. It was called Mexican philosophy, and we studied people like Octavio Paz, but we also looked at Spanish poets like Neruda or other writers in Latin America. At that time, it was all under like Mexican philosophy. I think I was the only Asian guy in there, student. So, I mean, I think that since ethnic studies has a 50-year history, it's actually time to actually have a little bit more collaboration, and not only in name, not only at official events. So, for instance, my idea would maybe perhaps to work with Hostos College to actually do a special issue of CUNY Forum that basically focuses on groups within the Bronx more comparatively. So would include African Americans, Latinos, and Asians. And actually, it might be a wonderful collaboration. So I think that that's one of the big difficulties. While we are established, but still, I think we really have not reached across the room as best as we can. And because of the way of funding, a lot of times people are competing each other for the same kind of funding. So that's actually not good either. So these are some of the, I believe, obstacles.
We are happy to engage. I will talk with faculty and see if we can come up with a committee that can work with you.
Thank you.
I think at the K through 12 level, so prior to my PhD work and prior to my work at AARI, I was a high school history teacher for many years in New York City public schools. And I think the biggest challenge, I would say there's two challenges. The first challenge is that within New York State and within many states, there's a very set test-driven curriculum that sort of dictates what's able to be taught in classrooms. And my own research has kind of evaluated and looked into some of the main testing structures in New York State, like the Regents exam, which many students need to pass in order to graduate. And those exams are not inclusive of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander history, or when it is included, it's done so in a way that does not speak to solidarity or resistance or struggle or joy. And to me, the solution is not to diversify tests or make them more inclusive, but instead to challenge the very structures that are limiting what we are able to teach in our classroom, which is to move away from perhaps something like the Regents, which seems to actually be happening in 2028. It looks like New York State is going to phase out the Regents exam. And so I hope that's an opportunity for us to diversify the kinds of stories that are being taught in schools and where we can pull our history from, so that it's not just about teaching to a test. But I would say the second challenge is also that when you are part of a population that our history has been invisibilized within this country, it can often be really difficult to actually find the kinds of stories that we want to share and teach. And so I'm always inspired by Vivek Bald's Bengali Harla, for example, as a way in which someone was able to uncover a history that no one believed existed. For folks who don't know, Bengali Harlem is the story of Bengali sailors and the first South Asian Muslim working class peddlers who arrived in the US in the 1900s, made communities and families here, married Puerto Rican women, and settled down in East Harlem, and were a huge part of New York City's history, but have largely been disappeared from our histories and stories and narratives because they were not seen or visibilized, and also because it was just really difficult for this history to be uncovered. And Vivek, in his documentary, speaks about the process that he had to go through in order to even discover this history. And he had to like misspell people's names purposefully because he was sure that the like original names would not have been spelled correctly in archives. And he had to go through Ancestry and DNA, ancestrydna.com, in order to find birth certificates and trace this work. And so the work is really difficult, especially when you have these buried histories. And so to Russell's point, I think we just need to advocate and collaborate for more funding, but also more community-driven and grassroots archives to be built so that we don't lose out on the histories that are happening right now, and to also make it easier for folks like us in the future who want to continue to document and preserve local history.
Yeah, thank you, Shreya. I really agree with you, and especially the point. I don't want to sound like a politician, but I think you mentioned joy, right? Joy, because many times ethnic history has been seen as a history of victimization, not too much joy. I mean, whether it's incarceration or of different sorts. So I think it's actually important for us to be aspirational, to show how we bring thinking, joy, aesthetics, many things. We are not, we are the subjects of our own culture, of our own history, and not just the victims. So I do, agree with you to that point.
Just to jump in here before we move on to any other questions, there is one more contribution to CUNY Forum. It's a short story by Professor Regina Bernard, Associate Professor at CUNY School of Professional Studies. You see on the screen right here. Her short story delves into the experiences of a young Guyanese American woman pursuing a job in New York's competitive and awfully highly segregated, racialized academic job market. Professor Bernard highlights the importance of recognizing and embracing diverse cultural voices and experiences within academic and professional spaces. So not only is there difficulty in sharing history, but there's also difficulty in getting jobs as well. And also, just so you know, we do offer an Asian American timeline. In this particular issue, we highlight 2023 to 2024 because that's when the issue came out. But if you want a full timeline that goes as far back as 1763, it's available on our website. And it's one more resource for people to learn about Asian American history, which is also just plain American history as well.
Okay, I just want to answer another question someone put in the chat, which was very simple. Will this video be on YouTube? And I'm told by our tech people the answer is yes. But as I always say, let's give them a few days because sometimes it takes a while to post these things. And then we have a comment here from Professor Tram Nguyen. I don't have a question and instead wanted to say, as someone who has started in Asian literary studies, it is lovely to see Asian studies flourish in terms of plentitude and richness of representation, voices, experimental forms, and intentions. and she thanks all of our presenters. I don't see any other questions here, so maybe we'll do just any closing thoughts from our panelists and from our president. And why don't we start with Russell?
I think a lot has been actually said, and I wanted to thank all of you, and especially the last commentator. I wanted to say that, is it Professor Tram? You said
Tram Nguyen.
Yeah, Tram Nguyen. That we're actually having a special focus section on 50 years of the Vietnamese diaspora in the next issue, actually, because as you notice, there weren't any Vietnamese Americans in this particular issue. So our job is always inclusion. So thank you all for inviting us for this AAPI Day.
And Anthony.
Just CUNY Forum serves as a crucial intellectual and creative space, fostering dialogue and deeper understanding of Asian American experiences. And we encourage everyone to explore this issue as well as our past issues and engage with the rich content it offers. And once again, you can actually go to our website, AAARI.info, and click on publications, CUNY Forum, and you can purchase this copy as well as the past copies online.
And Shreya.
Yeah, echoing both Russell and Anthony, thank you both thank you to Hostos for having us and for facilitating this, and for folks who are interested again in learning more localized history and history that's been collected by young people about New York City. We would love to see you at our archive launch on June 14th at CUNY Law. I believe the RSVP details are in the chat. But there is, exhibit on Vietnamese oral storytelling, on Cambodian Americans in the South Bronx, on the Chinese Latinx community of New York City, on South Asian political activism. Again, all uplifting the same themes that we've been talking about throughout this CUNY Forum of solidarity and collectivity and building a future of history where Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander history is American history, but is also a history that bridges across these various communities.
Thank you. And finally, Madam President.
I just want to say again, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for the joy, for the gift that you've given us with the publication, but also with your presentations and for taking the time to share with us your history and passions. And we certainly hope that there's a way that we can continue to collaborate, because I think this is such a powerful volume. As I told you when we first met, I was very appreciative. I think it was you, Professor Wong, who sent me a copy. Correct?
Correct.
Oh, so we will find out if the copies were ordered. If they're not, they will be ordered, and they certainly will be shared at different forums, so as we continue the conversation. And I want to also look at that 1700 volume. You said it's there as well, correct? Beginning with the 1700s.
The timeline, correct, yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you everyone for participating and attending. To our panelists, Russell Leong, Anthony Wong, and Shreya Sundaram. Thank you so much for your insights on this work. I think this was very educational. I hope that our viewing audience got a lot out of it. I certainly know that I did. Thank you everyone for attending. This has been The Power of the Word, selected AAPI readings from the CUNY Forum. Thank you. Happy AAPI History Month. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.